Hello, hello, my happy quilters. Here we are again for number 4.
No, so exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to be making 2 more blocks today. And this is the Quilt Along here at Rochester, Minnesota, Pine Needles Quilt and Sew with Joy and Marcia. We are using this book. We're not going to go into the book, but it's a wonderful book. If you want to look at number 1, we talk about this book and why you want this book. It's 110 wonderful quilt blocks in 5 sizes each. We love this book.
Right.
But today we're going to be talking about the shoe fly block. This is a very popular block. Dates back many years.
It's extremely traditional, very easy to make.
Half square triangles and squares. We can all do this one quite easily. So I'm going to first show you how to do the traditional cutting as it is in the book, and Joy's going to show you how to cut with rulers. So Carly, if you want to come down here so we can take a quick look. So it's just going to be cutting squares, and in the book we're doing 6-inch squares here. It tells you what size squares to make, so here we go. Would be this one, and you cut that on the diagonal. So that makes these here, and the same thing with the light colored ones. We're going to do the same thing, and that makes our half square triangles here. Bunch of squares for these 4, and then kind of fun. This would be a fun place like I did to do a fussy cut, but you don't have to put a flower in the middle or something that you might have. So easy peasy, sew them together. She's going to show you how to cut. Back up on top, please. And Joy's going to show you how to cut these with rulers and then how to sew them together.
All right, so the shoe fly is actually a traditional 9 patch. There's 3 squares across, 3 squares down, and when you put them together, we'll do those in rows, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But when we use specialty rulers, we look to the square often in our pattern. So when you look in the book, our pattern is block number 83. We're going to look to the squares here in the block, which there are 5, and we're going to cut the same size strip for the half square triangles when we use a specialty ruler. So again, easy peasy quilter's math. You don't even have to do any subtraction, Marcia. You look at the square, you cut the same size strip as your square to make these units. So let's go down below here. And when we cut, often, and Marcia probably did this when she did her squares, we put the one color down, and we can layer the other one. So whatever size square you have, that's the size that you're going to cut your 2 strips for your half square triangle. We're going to use a specialty ruler called a half square triangle ruler. And what sets it apart, how you can identify it, is it usually has a black tip on one side. And what we do is we line up the squared edge over here. And I'm not going to cut it today because we've done lots of cutting videos previously, but the black tip is off. We're going to make a cut across, and then we would go ahead and sew our triangles together. Now mine, because they are cut to the exact size, actually are going to have a flat notch at the top, and that actually indicates where your 1/4 inch seam is. So you're going to just sew from point to point. You're going to put them underneath your machine, stop, needle down, do the next one, stop, needle down, do the next one, and we can go up high again. That is called chain piecing, and when we're doing triangles or any quilting, if we can stop and make a chain, we help eliminate that little wobble at the beginning and the end of a piece so we get a more accurate seam allowance as we're sewing.
Yes.
After we have those all done, many of you would go right to the iron and press these, but Marcia and I are a firm believer in using your fingernail or a beautiful stylus to help flatten out your seam, and the pressing happens after the entire block is put together. What this does is this actually helps to eliminate any stretching because this is a bias edge. It's going to stretch, isn't it, Marcia?
It is.
So after I have these all sewn, I line them up in rows, and I'm going to go ahead and sew a pair, a pair, a pair. And I'm not going to cut that thread in between because that's my pinning to help me keep them straight so they don't twist on me. Now sometimes they still do, don't they, Marcia?
Exactly, but when you don't press the block until the very end, then have you ever pressed a seam to the wrong direction?
Absolutely.
And then it comes time to put it in your block and it it's like you got one that's this way and this way. But look at how nice they turn out on the back. Everything fits together nicely, and away you go.
Right. So just to finish off, because it's going to be the same process kind of for all the rest of these blocks, you'll then add your last pieces. Remember, there's a thread pin in here. Then you flip this down, sew a seam, flip this up, sew a seam, and lastly, we do the pressing. So that's shoe fly. Traditional, easy. You can make an entire quilt out of these shoe flies. It would be so fun, wouldn't it?
And if you can get used to not pressing your blocks till the end, you'll be surprised how much time you save as well.
Absolutely. And then Marcia made this adorable little bonus project, and she went into her scraps.
Yep.
I don't know. Do you? Any of you have scraps up there? I do.
Actually, these were like, this was a quilt backing, and you know those strips that you cut along the edges? Right. And then those were some fabrics that I had. So you can just go into your scrap bag and find some things. This would take a little bit more for these, but like I said, this was used on a backing of a quilt, and I had those long strips that I was able to repurpose for that too. So a little shoe fly table topper.
I know, easy peasy. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, fun.
All right, now the next one has a couple more pieces, but really it's the same idea. And our next block.
Oh, mine's over there.
Oh, sorry. I grabbed the wrong one.
It's okay.
We have Old Maid's Puzzle. And I meant to research why it's called Old Maid's Puzzle, but again, you know, traditionally quilts were made from scraps, right, Marcia?
Absolutely.
And why don't we
So let's go down, Carly, and let's look here. This is traditional. This one has a bit more piecing. So we did a traditional, like a 3-patch on this one. Now we've got kind of a 4. So
right.
This would be like a 16 patch
right.
going on here. So a little bit more piecing. But again, you're going to cut the squares like it says in the book for traditional. And you're going to then cut down the diagonal just like that. And the same for these. You cut the square and then you cut down the diagonal. Then we need a bunch of squares here. And also we need some of these. So again,
some bigger pieces.
Yep. So then again, we're going to cut the square and cut down on the diagonal.
Right. Okay.
So lots of fun. This one's lots of fun.
So,
and 2 squares here too.
Will you hold yours up, Marcia? And I'm going to hold mine up because Marcia chose to put her color blocks together so that hers looks different than mine. They're the same thing, but I chose 3 colors and she's got 2. So depending on how you choose to put yours together, they can look differently.
Absolutely.
But they're the same blocks. And remember quilter's math. Look to the square. So we've got a square here. We've got a square here, here, here. Half square triangles. The rule is when you're using a specialty ruler like a half square triangle ruler, if you cut your strips the same size as the square that it's in a row with, you'll have the right size piece of fabric to cut your half square triangles. Now I just demonstrated that, but these 3 units are all half square triangles, and then this one is a square. So if you look at this block for construction, and maybe, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fold it over. You're going to do 2 blocks like this. You're going to sew a 4-patch with this pattern. You're going to do 2 of those because they make up, in mine, these red units. And doesn't that look like a huge half square triangle, Marcia?
It does.
Well, I guess you had yours.
You
have 2 colors.
I did sew them together into 4 patches, but they are actually 16 in a row. But yes, you sew these together like this, and sew these ones like that.
Right, and you want to lay these out ahead of time because it's easy to turn these pieces around, because I think it's called Old Maid's Puzzle because
it does a little bit of a puzzle putting it together.
Right, because these have the squares in the corner. These have like diagonal squares, so you want to lay them out. But you are going to sew 2 4 patches, 2 4 patches, and then sew them together this way. And again, the rule is, if you look in your book, because some of you are making bigger, some of you are making smaller blocks, look at the square to use the half square triangle, cut these strips the same size to cut these.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
then otherwise, if you don't want to use this tool, Marcia's using a traditional
straight cut ruler.
ruler.
In here, just about everything is cut in squares, and then you cut on diagonal once, or some of the blocks you have to cut twice on the diagonal.
So that's it for this week. That is Old Maid's Puzzle.
So that's blocks 7 and 8.
And we will see you next time.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us here at Pine Needles Quilt and Sew. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for blocks 9 and 10.
Oh my goodness.
All right, thanks everybody.